Yo, what is up? You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Brandon. That is Ryan.
Yo.
And a little snappier on that. I am Brandon. That is Ryan.
Yo.
Good enough. And with us, we have an extra special guest. You may know him as Shoes and Moops on Twitter. He is also the host of the Kenny's G League podcast, and he is slicker than a congresswoman vaping in a musical theater production of Beetlejuice. It is Erik Peterson. Erik, what is up, man?
What's up? Thanks for having me on the podcast.
You are welcome. What did you think of that? The slicker than a congresswoman? Are you happy with that, or?
Terrifying.
Why do all the? I mean, God, she maxes out the crazy hot spectrum. I'm not gonna lie. So that guy, go get it.
Yeah.
Plus, I've seen Beetlejuice in musical form. I have no clue at what point in time during that musical you would say, you know what, I'm really turned on right now.
At the very beginning, apparently. I mean, to be fair, Michael Keaton was pretty hot, but I mean, that was 30 years ago now. Also not a musical production of. Yeah, I actually can't even imagine. Well, I guess, yes, I can. I could imagine a musical production of Beetlejuice. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about basketball and stuff. But before we do, just maybe some light banter off the top. Erik, how's everything in your world? And yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, going good. Just chilling today, kind of watching the Blazers rumors, continue to happen all day long. Just kind of waiting for the trade or something to drop. But other than that, just been chilling.
For the first time all summer.
Yeah. That's right.
It is, it's a wild and woolly world out there. Actually, since you brought it up, let's not spend too much time on it, but really quick, what do you two think, starting with Erik? Is this trade happening this week?
I mean, I always said until this week that it was going to be a deadline trade just because I thought it was so much like the Durant trade. And now I'm like, all right, it's happening this week. It's going to happen.
I stand by my statements in our previous pod. I believe I said that I gave it a very long shot odds of it being Miami before the season, and that if it was going to happen before the season, it'd be any other team. And what are the rumors right now? That it's not Miami. So I will plan my own personal victory parade for that if that's how that goes down. But
yeah, you will. I think what we're seeing now is a leverage play. Frankly, they're not talking to Miami, but it is in order to get Miami to up their ante. It was interesting hearing Zach Lowe on his most recent podcast saying he talked to a certain GM, didn't say who, because why would he? That GM felt like they were involved in the Dame talks, not Miami. That GM felt like they were being used as what was it? A measuring stick. Yeah. So they basically, this GM told Zach Lowe that we're in the talks, but it's really just for leverage. I just thought that's very interesting. The machinations of NBA politicking and trade stuff.
Yeah, it's no different than any other deal making in life and whatnot, especially with such high value assets and all those things. But I mean, the thing that's always stuck out to me is, I can't remember if I said this last recording, was, from all things that have come out or been talked about, is that Miami and Portland haven't talked at all, really. There's been no formal offers made. It's all been speculative offers and all that kind of crap. And so, when it's coming out that, the Blazers aren't talking to Miami. Okay, great. They haven't done that for the last 2.5 months either. So what's new?
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe at this point I'm just feeling a little exhausted and sad, although I am participating in the Dame trade industrial complex on Twitter. So I'm as guilty of it as anyone.
It's on X.
But that's not why we're here today. We're here to talk with Erik, first of all, because he's a cool guy. Second of all, because he is way better at basketball than he gives himself credit for. Thank you very much. And I also think it's funny that of the two people here, one of whom attended my wedding, is my friend I've talked to a lot. Only one of you I've played basketball with, and it's not the co-host. It's Erik.
I'm retired. I got long knees.
Retired old. But I wanted to talk to you because you have begun a new podcast called the Kenny's G League podcast. It just so happens to correspond with the Blazers getting a G League team, the Rip City Remix, and they're playing in the University of Portland's campus, which is in North Portland. So before really anything else, Erik, I wanted to ask you, what is it that led to your decision to start this podcast in a space where there is really nothing like that right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted to start something because I was excited that they were going to have a team in general. And, I wanted to give myself an excuse to follow the team more closely, probably, and it just kind of seemed like a good way to, I don't know, to give myself a reason to kind of weasel my way into something interesting, whether that ends up being just like personally for me, that sounds fun, or whether it's like, oh, cool, this is something that I enjoy more. I'll, put more effort, more time into it. Either way, it's kind of works out for me. So they had a team, they, got the G League team. And I'm just kind of interested in like how the G League functions anyway, I guess. Just because it's kind of, minor league sports in general seem kind of like a unique thing, something we don't really have so much, I feel like, in the US, but let alone, we really only have the Blazers around here anyway, aside from soccer now, so I was just kind of excited to dive deeper into that and give myself an excuse to do it.
The Portland Pickles are upset with you right now.
I was going to say to touch on that,
pickles.
Baseball is the only other sport in America that really takes advantage of a minor league system or a developmental system for their players, in which they can, similar to basketball, play to the style that the main team is going to play for, try to work their way up and whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting for to say the least of Portland finally being able to get its own dedicated one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, sorry. But I'm still interested though, because it seemed like almost maybe my brain isn't working anymore, but it seemed like very quickly after they announced the Rip City remix, here comes your podcast, professional audio editing. It already has a logo. You have a concept for it. Like, how quickly did that come together for you? Was it like, yeah, I got to do this like
before anyone else did it? I just had to do it before anybody else did it. That's all it was. Like I put out the first episode when they announced the name or something, and I was like, well, I'm not going to have anything else to talk about for a couple months, but I might as well do it now before somebody else does. That was that was it. Didn't seem like it would hurt to try to do it first. That was basically the only impetus.
Have you thought, because you're local in the area, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Have you thought or tried reaching out to anybody affiliated with the Blazers organization about how they're doling out coverage for their G League team?
I sent an email to like the general NBA credential email thing just recently, and I haven't heard back from that yet. So I'll try someone else that's a little more localized than like the NBA general, you should email this email account, because that would be really cool. Like that would honestly be such a fun thing to try to get into. So I'm super up for that for sure. But so far no, but still got some time.
Advice I could give you on that, just from happenstance over the years and now being 8 years into podcasting, and for all two of our loyal listeners, Goldner, no,
3 now.
is 3, yes, but no, is a very the Portland media, for as standoffish or as confrontational as they can tend to be online or in social media or whatnot, I've always found them to be extremely helpful to reaching out and just DMing them and, hey, this is what I got going on, this could you point me to the direction of this, or or how do I go about that? Everybody I've ever reached out to throughout the years, I mean, I'm friends with a lot of the people now that I just sent out flyers to, and I was like, hey, either do you want to come talk silly stuff with me on a podcast, or hey, how do I go about doing this or reaching out to this person? They've always been super accommodating. So one bit of upstart podcaster advice I could get: don't be afraid to reach out to people, especially locally, because most of the people we have around here locally are super helpful.
That's good to know. I'm always a little nervous to like ask someone to go out of their way for like some kind of help.
Well, I think to Ryan's point too, and this is, I'm not just bullshitting you. You would be doing them a favor by producing something that is well done and thoughtful and giving coverage to the work that they're doing, because this is new for them, right? Like it's funny to actually see, like, you go on LinkedIn and it's like, there's a job opening for like GM of the Rip City Remix. And you're
right.
Like,
I love that so much. That was fantastic.
So did you apply? That's really the main question.
I did not apply.
I will say I encourage somebody to apply for their play-by-play. I hope that they did.
Yeah.
But it was, you think about it, like, yes, like the Trailblazers are this big organization and they do make a lot of money, but frankly, they need people to help spread awareness, to talk about and give coverage to what they're doing, especially because they're brand new. So all to say, like, I am really impressed with the work that you're doing, and it's really, really cool. And I kind of with you, honestly, vicariously through your work, I'm going to get to know the team better, going to be more interested in it than I otherwise would have been. So at least you've gotten one person like more on board with it than would have been otherwise.
Cool.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, cool. I think that's kind of my goal, is like, that's one of the things that I'm kind of curious to see about the remix. And I guess like maybe like minor league sports in general is, there's like so much movement and stuff in the league compared to maybe an NBA team or something. I'm kind of curious what that looks like, because like there's obviously people can get really invested in players and let alone the whole team, and there's like a lot of emotion that comes from that, of course, in like some good ways and some maybe less good ways, but I'm kind of curious if like for a G League team, if it can be possible to be a still invested but more casually invested fan, you know what I mean? Like if a player gets called up to the NBA or whatever from your favorite G League team, you're not going to be upset about that the same way you'd be if your favorite player on the Blazers gets traded. It's like a totally different thing. You're rooting for them to leave your favorite G League team, and so I'm kind of curious what years down the line, like the attitude of if people get invested in minor league teams, I'm just kind of curious what that attitude will look like. So I'm kind of semi-intentionally ahead of time trying to, personally cultivate, like, this is more of like a fun thing that we get to watch, and less like as much as I can be invested in the Blazers, in some really fun ways that totally pay off, but also some ways that you get really disappointed down the line. That's fine. But, maybe there's a way to kind of like be a fan differently of the remix or whatever, because it's just a pretty different experience. You're rooting for guys to leave, essentially, go make $3 million on a minimum contract, because that's a great thing for any player to do,
How much crossover are you kind of anticipating, especially in this first year, between focusing just on the remix and then how much that'll like stuff with the Blazers? Because I don't think that, like, in a normal season, there's like, maybe you'll get like a call up or a guy gets sent down to the G League for an assignment here or there, but you basically, for lack of a better term, we're looking at Portland having two versions of a G League team in their, Portland Trailblazer, roster, and watch the Young Bucks. And hey, realistic here. And then their actual G League team. So are you anticipating there being kind of a lot of crossover where, you're covering, this one guy who's maybe popping a lot, and then he's playing 3 weeks for the Blazers, and you're doing a lot of talking about him on that end? Or are you going to try to strictly focus only on the guys on the remix while they're there?
the shtick that I've been joking of doing is like pretending like I've never heard of the Blazers or NBA basketball at all. And
I have been appreciating that, by the way.
So I might stick with that, but in real life, I love the Blazers, so it's going to be kind of a tough one to really stick to. But like, I think that would be my goal, is to just like mainly be like, this is about the G League. I want to like legitimize it and not make it like a secondary thing so much, So that would be my goal, is to really stick to G League stuff. But then when guys get sent down, like, I'll be excited for that. I'm going to be excited when Ryan Rupert, scores 30 against the Ignite or whatever, So like, that would be awesome. I'll be excited about that too, but mostly G League.
Well, it's interesting too, you talking about just the way that people root for the team might be different. And it definitely will be, particularly because of access. Like, I don't know what the ticket costs are going to be for these games, but I imagine less than an NBA game, right? Like,
yeah, they're really cheap. You can get some courtside tickets for more, but like, I did like a half season this year, and it came out to $10 a ticket or something like that.
So you're going to be at most of these games, or
a good chunk anyway. Yeah.
How does that, how are you going to balance being kind of like someone who's interested in basketball, maybe even rooting for the team, with also now you have a podcast where you're trying to cover them too? Like what hat, when you walk into the University of Portland Arena, whatever its named is, which I don't remember, what hat are you wearing? Are you wearing like I'm a person, I'm a fan, I'm covering the team? Is it all of those hats as I take off my hat? How are you
oh man, that's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I think since they're really the only guys that are probably going to be on the team that I even have like an idea of who they are, is, the two-way guys, and a couple of the guys that are on the summer league team. I think I'm not really a fan yet in the same way I'm a fan of anything else I'm a fan of, so like, I'm coming in pretty blank slate, to be honest. And so like, I've been looking at it more just like on a level of curiosity, like, what does the team try to do? How similar is that to the Blazers? I'd assume it's similar. You got to assume it's similar, but like, I don't know. I think I'm basically coming at it from just a level of curiosity to see what they do, more than like actually being invested in how good they are or anything like that. So that's kind of like mostly what I'm looking at is just out of pure curiosity and interest, like it's like a science project or something. I'm in middle school and I'm, doing a science project. It's just like, oh, I wonder what this would be like.
I mean, is there anyone that I know it's still very early days, but is there anyone that we know is going to be spending a decent amount of time in the G League? Like you mentioned, Ryan Rupert, who's clearly going to be the next Nick Batum, like, obviously. But is there anyone in particular?
Yes.
such a countryist thing to think.
Listen, he looked terrible in summer league, and he's from France, so therefore it's Nick Batum.
Aren't they from the same city too?
Are they?
I think they are.
They know each other.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it was either same city or like went to like some same, or like shared a school or something.
There's some connection there. Yeah.
I'm down with it. Nick Batum, come back to Portland. Why not? But is there anyone?
I was advocating for that last year.
That's right.
I don't think he's coming now.
No,
I think he's retiring after this season, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I mean, is there anyone in particular, again, it's still early days, but is there anyone in particular that you're kind of like most interested in seeing how they play / most interested in seeing how they develop, and how they might be able to use their time, with the remix for that purpose? Yeah,
well, Ibu Baji, I'm really interested in, because he started like playing basketball super late, and he didn't play at all last season. So I'm really interested in him. I watched this interview with him the other day that Mike Schmitz did like 3 years ago. And it was really funny because he was just like, tell me about yourself. And Iwabaji goes like, I'm funny. I'm 7 feet tall. Cool guy. That's it. It's like, that's the three things you can come up with. And he asked him like, what player do you really like in basketball? Joel Embiid, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to get on board with a 19, 20-year-old that like started playing basketball 6 years ago or something like that, 5 years ago, that wants to be the next Joel Embiid. I'm all about that. He looked okay at summer league too. So that was kind of fun. And then there's that one player. What is his name? He was on the summer league roster.
Of course, we picked the year that I wasn't there.
Oh, do you usually go?
Yes, these are, I steal one every year that I go from the back of the chairs. You can just unbutton them when no one's looking. I have quite a few.
That's awesome. I went for the first time this summer.
Nice.
But the guy that was on the summer league roster, he's like the second highest college scorer of all time. I'm blanking on his name.
I should know this. I feel like one of us should know this.
I should not. I paid zero attention. And that's going to lead into a question. Actually, I'll ask this question while you're looking it up here real quick. So,
Antoine Davis.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
For the casual fan like me, like even though I do a Blazers podcast, like I'm not entirely sure myself how checked in I'm going to be for most of the season, which, by the way, stay tuned, folks. That'll make for some very interesting podcast hosting on my part. But, because typically the Blazers are, I'll plan my freaking calendar around them. Somebody wants to do an activity, go out, whatever. I can't. They're playing. As to now, they're just going to be, passively in the background. And like the last 2 tanking years, I've checked out because I haven't necessarily always been a big fan of the let's watch the young guys develop. And I feel as though I'm not on an island with that, but how would you go about introducing the G League to someone with that mindset who's familiar with basketball, but doesn't necessarily, at the moment care about why do I want to watch these, young kids develop?
Yeah. Well, I think the way I've been thinking about it is there's like a few things. There's a lot of movement in the G League. So like the second half of the season, the roster can look like pretty different than the first half. So I think it's a little more like maybe the second half of the season, the team will figure it out more than you would get in the NBA. So I think that's kind of cool. They start the season over halfway through, like they wipe the wins and losses. So I think there's like a little more opportunity for a team to put some things together in 1 or 2 seasons than there is in the NBA. And then if you do like watching young guys start to put it together, but kind of in a different way, because you're not waiting for 5 starters that are that are under 23 to put it together. That's kind of what most of the league is like. Is he's either relatively young or they're they've played in an overseas league or they're an NBA vet that's working their way back into the NBA. So I think you have a little bit more variety in kind of who you're rooting for on your team. Like the Blazers will probably have Jeremy Grant as a vet, and that might be it. And then we don't know what the Remixes roster is going to look like yet, but I'd imagine the 2 ways, a handful of young guys, I would hope they sign at some point in the season, like one of those NBA vets that, is still playing basketball in some capacity. Like, I think that would be cool. I'll be excited for some Hoop Grids guy to like be on the roster or whatever. And so I can't
wait for Dwight Howard to make his way to the Rip City Remix. It's going to be great.
Exactly.
Oh gosh.
Exactly. I'll buy the jersey and everything. You know it.
Well, at least he's got a last name that can transfer. Like, no, this wasn't Dwight Howard. This was another Howard.
Yeah. And so I think you have a lot of chances throughout the season just to kind of like renew interest a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if nothing else, you can probably be excited to see the Ignite come through town. Like that's going to be super cool. There's like 3 or 4 guys that are like lottery picks, if not, a little bit later. 2 guys that are like right now, probably definitely lottery picks, if top 5.
Possibly even 1, 2.
Like,
I mean, it's early.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was Scoot's team, right? He was the Ignite?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so they've got a couple other guys that are like 1 through 5 at the moment. A couple other guys that are like probably first round picks. So if nothing else, you should check out those games. And then, beyond that, I think if you just like basketball in general, it's super easy to kind of tune in and out, which maybe is not as attractive for some people, but like, I think that's cool personally. That you can go to a game for $10 or whatever and I was feel fine about that. You know what I mean?
I think particularly for the local market, this is going to be really, really cool. You get to see like high level basketball for not that much money. Like I do think that's actually a great thing.
Yeah.
I've also thought about,
go ahead. Yeah. Like I'm kind of curious, like what the G League looks like in several years. 'Cause there's really no, like middle class professional athletes in the United States. Like that doesn't really exist. You're either an NBA player or you're not,
or you're in China,
exactly. And like, but there's so much talent in basketball in the world that I don't know, that would be something that I really wish existed is like, middle class professional sports, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I think that would be super cool, because there's all these leagues in different parts of the world that have tons and tons of talent. It would be awesome to me if that translated over to the US at all.
I agree. Like I'm on this relatively small island here with a couple million people, and I saw a regional basketball game. The Otago Nuggets, were playing in a town an hour away. It was super fun. And like, it was not that much to get in. We were so close to the court. You get that sense of scale and speed being that close to it. And they weren't, NBA level players, but it was like very entertaining. And I felt myself getting connected to certain players based on like one move they made. And then now I'm like watching them more closely. Like that's just sort of how it happens, right? Like if you enjoy basketball, Ryan, but no, I'm like, sorry, I don't mean to shit on you, but like
as I'm watching a Mariners play or Mariners game.
Can you please pay attention for the love of God?
Last 10 games of the season, they're fighting for their playoff.
He's got
lives.
his little Mariners hat and his little Mariners shirt. He's got his little Mariners poster behind him, for God's sake.
You do not. No, he's sorry, Julio. He didn't mean that. Never mind the bobblehead up there too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Back to the G League really quick, but like I one other thing that I think some casual fans might do is, and I think this is what's maybe going to help begin spurring interest, when you have the first player who really pops and who goes from playing in the G League to now they're like a fixture on the Blazers. I think that's going to get people to watch, because then they're going to be kind of like, oh, like who's the next guy to pop? And so I'm curious, do you have a sense of who that might be? And again, it's so early, we don't really know yet. And I get that. But like, is there anyone that you think as of right now has the highest likelihood of going from, oh, that's like a G League player to like, oh, they've become like a legit NBA rotation player?
Oh man, I wish I had a better answer for you. The roster just isn't filled out enough to know. But like, man, I mean, that stuff happens all the time, especially through like COVID and everything, that's going to be different this season probably, but there were just so many call-ups.
Especially if your team has a really good talent identifier, which Joe Cronin's front office just happens to have such a person, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Talking about Mike Schmitz, obviously. I do like it's interesting to think about the business side of this, the Blazers, and Cronin, the way he's built his front office and them hiring Mike Schmitz away from ESPN. And now, of course, as Blazers fans, every time, and you mentioned one earlier with Ibu Baji, every time we see like a Mike Schmitz interview with ESPN with this person, it's like, is that person going to make his way to the Blazers? Like I've heard it happening with DeAndre Ayton. It's like Mike Schmitz interviewed DeAndre Ayton and now he's a future Blazer. But like having the G League as a repository for talent, when you have someone who is known around the league as an A+ talent evaluator, I think is going to be huge.
Yeah. I mean, just that they like managed to put the team together in like 6 months or whatever it was, like they obviously have made development a huge priority. And I guess you can kind of like argue how long that was like the plan over going with vets and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. But whatever it is, they did it. So,
well, and clearly
that's where we're at now.
Yeah. Sorry. I keep interrupting, but,
you're good.
Just that like, and someone fact check me on this, my understanding, and I'm not trying to, I've crapped on Neil Olshey so much and I will more, don't worry. But like, he never prioritized the G League in any way, shape, or form, which I find very odd given the Blazers, where they are, it's a relatively small city, not a super desirable market. We all know how are the Blazers going to get talent? It's going to be through the draft or trade. So why wouldn't you develop that pipeline of talent? It makes perfect sense. So I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened after Neil Olshey was fired in disgrace. So I don't know. Ryan, you're on mute.
I had paint on my nose.
What's that?
I had paint on my nose and not a single one of you said a thing.
Luckily we're not recording the video. Were you trying to say something or were you on mute on purpose? Sorry, that's my bad.
I was complaining about none of you telling me that I had paint on my nose.
I couldn't tell, man. Okay, well, we are getting near the end of our time. If you were to leave us and the people who listen to this extremely popular podcast with anything about the G League or the Rip City remix, what would you like to share with folks or leave them with as we fade into the sunset?
I think a big thing about the G League, from what I understand, it's kind of easy to root for individuals, just kind of like for their success, like I think we should always be rooting for people's success in general. But like, man, even in the G League, getting a call up to a team for like training camp or a 10-day or whatever, like that's a huge deal. And there's only so many of those spots. So like, as the NBA season kind of rolls into form and everything, like it's pretty easy to just have an idea of who's going to be around in the NBA and the G League. Like the Blazers are going to have several guys on the training camp roster that'll probably be on the remix, and just like be on the lookout for these guys. I'll try to keep up to date on that stuff. Because it's, if you watch like that Amazon documentary, like these are dudes that are trying to, make a dream happen. And it's just really cool to kind of get to follow that a little bit from afar and root them on. And that's before the season even starts. So it's just kind of cool to have a little bit of this, like, insight into individuals too. So yeah, that's kind of what to look for, I think, over the next couple months.
And just a functional question, how often are you planning to be releasing episodes as the season gets started?
Probably like once a week, maybe something like that.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Ryan, you got anything else before we bounce?
Nothing that I can think of. I'll definitely be tuning in. I'm going to rely on you to get me interested in watching younger children than I typically do play basketball and care about their development.
Well, I mean, yeah. I would say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it can be difficult to get a excited about like, oh, this guy is a child and he's a professional athlete.
I already have to fake being excited and interested in my own 2 children. Now I have to.
It's funny you say that, Eric. I think it was you that tweeted this, that I think you said you're sad because when Dame leaves, there's not going to be anyone on the team who's older than you. Just wait until you are older than everyone in the NBA, because it only gets worse.
They reach our age, they retire.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm still holding on by a thread because LeBron James and I are almost the exact same age. And so I still tell myself I could be in the NBA if I wanted to. I could be one of the best players in the NBA.
LeBron's got a year on me.
Put your name in the draft this next season.
I should have tried out for the Rip City remix. By the way, I thought that was so cool.
You could have worn a Ryan Arcianato jersey and just walked into the freaking arena for a good portion of last year. I've compared you looks-wise to him for 4 years. He's finally on the team, and you don't like just try to find a jersey and stroll onto the court?
Even for a really boring, plain-looking white dude, Ryan Arcidiacono has a little bit on me, unfortunately, and I never quite passed. But Erik, we appreciate you and your time. If people wanted to reach out to you or wanted to connect with your work, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find the podcast on everything that you can get podcasts on, Kenny's G League. You could follow me on Twitter or X at Shoozumhoops, SHOOZUMOOPS. It's supposed to sound like shoot some hoops. And you can connect with me there.
Congratulations too, because your Twitter name spawned a new channel in the Trailcasters Discord where people then connect to shoot some hoops, which I'm excited for. I can't wait to be back in Portland to see you two and others and to actually play some basketball.
I'll be the water boy. I got your towels. We're good.
You could still play. I mean, we could play half court. We could do, it's fine. Hey, Seth was out there. He'd had like surgery on his foot and he was playing.
That's right.
So like, if he could do that, like you could play. Anyways,
I'll be the GM. That's the job I'll apply for. GM of the Pickup Hoops Rec game.
Should have applied on LinkedIn to the Rip City Remix, my friend. It was there for the taking. But that's it for now. If you want to reach out to us, you can always do that at Like the Blazers on Twitter. We're not going to call it X. By the way, once they start charging people for that, I'm totally
$1,
off.
we're out.
I'm not going to do it. I literally it's not even it's moral, but it's also I'm just not going to do it. Anyway, you can find us on Twitter.
I pay so much money for so many stupid other subscriptions. I don't care. It's only $1.
I actually just paid for my second podcast, a podcast called Is This Good? With a couple of the guys who are connected with No Dunks, formerly the Starters. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Find us at Like the Blazers. Find Erik at Shoozumhoops. Find Ryan at the Witty Ryan. Find me at Golden PDX. You can also find us at WeLikeTheBlazers.com. And that's about it. Until next time, I appreciate you all. Thank you for having us. What? That's weird. And go Blazers.
Go Blazers.
Go Remix.
Go Remix.